Hello and welcome everyone to Real Talk with Paulo Schneider. Here we're gonna have today we're gonna have a real and powerful show. And but before we go into the real deal here, Real Talk with Paulo Schneider, I wanted to ask the audience to log into our social media, through our Instagram, to our websites, and connect with all our social media so that you stay tuned with all the information that is out there for you. As a matter of fact, my website has a blog that daily we update information about the real market, the real estate market, all the industry in the state of Florida and nationwide, about mortgage rates, real estate investments, and all technology, all the things that you want to know in real time. You can look up at our website called pauloschneider.com, which will be linked right here. And so you can search in there, including obviously real estate everything real estate related too. Also, our Instagram, it's pschneider2000. Log into there, connect with us, speak to us, talk to us, and so we can bring you information on the daily basis to keep you updated with what's best out there for you to make some great investments and connect with us. And if I don't have it, I'm sure I'll bring it to you through other sources. But one thing is we're gonna make sure that you're gonna be informed well and the right way. So much so that our goal here is to bring professionals, industry experts that understand the world that we live in, the work that we do business in, so that you can benefit from the guests that we have on, that we're gonna have on, and we will continue to have on here. And today, I have the greatest privilege of all, and I think I can call him a friend already, even though we don't know each other for that long. But you know, when you see somebody speak, when you see somebody talk, when you see somebody saying things, you know that it feels right, you connect right away. There is a purpose there. And this is what brought us together today. And my guest today is none other than Rick Melero. Rick is the CEO of His Capital, president, founder, CEO, and everything you want to know of titles, that's him right there. And his story is one of the greatest American dream stories that you can find. So I will tell you this, listen to it attentively, what he has to say, and he's gonna share some nuggets, some gold and diamond nuggets for us here and to you all out there that you need to take, and do it yourself, or come on board and do it with Rick and us and all that stuff. So I wanted to welcome Rick to our show. Thank you so much for making it today. I know you have a super busy schedule, so let's get right to it. Thank you again for being on board with us.
Thank you, brother. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys, and it's an honor.
Thank you very much. So Rick, let's go right into it, because time is money. It's very valuable. And of course, people want to know what made you so successful, and the ideas and tips and investment strategies that you used to become who you are today and the future. And so, in addition to give people some advices as to what they should do, what has best worked for you over the many years that you have been in business, what you found that worked best. So tell us, take it away. It's all yours.
Absolutely. Again, it's a pleasure to be here with you guys, and I really hope that we'll be able to inspire you to really reach the next level. Now, what's important to note is that the strategies that I'm going to talk about today, a lot of people like to kind of boast about their success, but I think they sell themselves short, because the reality is when people ask me what has helped me to be successful, what I tell them is the fact that I took massive action and I failed forward for many, many years.
Wow.
And
failed forward.
Absolutely. Failing forward has been an element of all of my career. And if you don't overcome that fear of failure, what ends up happening is you don't execute. And so I would say before we talk about any success, understand that any successful person has had to persevere failure over and over again and persevere to the point that they reach the level of success. So any wisdom I give you today is because I learned a million ways of how not to do it. And I think that's an important, valuable lesson that should be the cornerstone of any real estate investor that's looking to become financially free.
Wow. So yeah, that's so. We have in this world, people invest in every kind of thing. They hear from the neighbor, they hear from their peers. Oh, invest here because I made a few dollars here, but they don't understand how do they have to properly prepare in order to make a wiser investment, Rick. As you know, many people invest in things that they just buy things and then later on they find out that they have made the biggest mistake and lost everything. So tell us a little bit about what you did and how it worked in the beginning versus how it works today for you. What did you learn through this process?
Absolutely. Well, part of this whole process for me has been understanding that it really comes down to getting to a place where you understand why you're investing in the first place. You see, one of the things that I did in the beginning of my career is I thought that being a successful real estate investor meant that I needed to build an enterprise, this big business. Now, don't get me wrong. Over the years, I have received so many blessings and so much opportunity from his capital. But when I look back, if I were to go back to my younger self and say, let's discuss starting all over again, I don't know that I would have said, get so actively involved that you build an enterprise, because really, when I look at the why did I want to invest in the first place? And for me, the why was so that I can free myself of my time so that I could do more missionary work and be with my family and travel. And the reality is, creating an enterprise, thinking that was the solution, really gave me a lot more responsibility and a lot more work that I needed to work through. And so I find myself now, over 20 years later, slowly but surely building partnerships with other people so that I can delegate parts of this enterprise so that I can go back to the traditional why in the first place, which is to free my time to be able to go on the mission field and help people, be a good father and husband, and just create great memories around the world. And so it's an important thing to know before you talk about investing and identify the why. Why do you want to invest? And I think that's one essential element we need to start with. The second element that I think is also very important, and I think this was a major shift for me. And the way I tell people is, when I first started my career, I didn't have a lot of money, and that's just a reality. And
which is the case of most people.
Exactly. And in a minute, I'll talk about some of the things you could do to get from not having that much money to ultimately becoming an investor and have passive income. But one of the things I had to shift in my mind is, for years, I worked for victory, meaning that I worked to earn money to become successful. And I didn't realize that my mindset should have been that I'm working from victory. And that makes a big difference, because when you're chasing money, it becomes your God. But when you realize that money is literally a tool and it can become an employee of yours, then you approach money differently. You approach money not from the standpoint of I need to get money, but to actually say, I am going to use this money that I slowly but surely build, and I'm going to make it an employee. So it goes to work for me.
For you. Yeah.
And that's a big difference.
Oh, so huge. Huge.
Yes. And so once you know the why, and once you understand that money is a tool that you can employ to be your employee, then you start asking yourself, okay, what can I do now in today's moment to build myself up so that I have enough of these dollars to go out to work for me, so that at some point I become financially free. And that's really where it comes down to. One of the philosophies that I have learned over the 20 years is that I take a look at my time and I take a look at my real estate investments in a very, very similar way. I call it my 40-40-20 plan. Okay. Right. So what I mean by that is that 40% of my investments are what I call short-term gains. So these are typically more active investments that give me the ability to buy an asset distressed. So I'm buying below the market today, where I have an opportunity to add value to those projects. And then within a 12 to about 18 month turn, that's a timeline of what I call an appreciating asset. I'm able to then sell that asset or turn that investment and generate a pretty significant profit. Now, what I do from there, and this is the most important part, is then I take it to the next 40, which is I take from these profits and I invest it into cash flow. So the first one is appreciating assets. That's the first 40. The second 40 is cash flow, which is building passive income. Now, the reason why that is important, and that is because this is the biggest misconception of most people. They think that to become financially free, they need to have $1 million or $10 million in the bank. That is not true. That is not true. I have clients right now that over time have built millions of dollars, but what they had to do first was to identify, what is my monthly living expenses? Is that $5,000 a month? Is that $10,000 a month? And then setting a goal that you're going to have enough active income that you will invest in rental income, maybe short-term rentals, maybe some commercial, or for some of our clients, they buy mortgages from us because they produce a cash flow.
Right.
And once that cash flow meets your minimum expenses to live, you no longer have to work for money. Your cash flow is now paying your living
working
expenses.
For you.
Now you're free, right? And then once you get to that stage, then you go to the last 20. And the last 20 is what I call higher risk, higher reward. These are opportunities that may have a higher risk or they may take longer, but the ultimate profit that it could bring is substantially greater. These are the kind of opportunities that can set you free financially. And so what I tell people is we begin in 140, which is appreciation. We take from those profits and start building the second bucket, which is cash flow. And once you're set up financially where at least your living expenses are in place and you have more resources, then you can afford to take a little bit higher of a risk on opportunities that may potentially double or triple your money. And so I think that's an essential, sound, fundamental investment approach that would help investors to kind of get their mindset. You're not investing in one deal. What you're doing is you're taking that one deal and you're building slowly but surely a portfolio of projects.
You're spreading out. You're diversifying your investments within the process right there.
Exactly.
But that I wanted to bring you back on one point that I wanted to ask you earlier. How did you? I mean, of course, you're going to continue here this flow. Don't lose mindset. But how did you understand when you realized that you need? When was that? When you realized that when you needed to make the money work for you? You were obviously a lot younger when you found that out because for so many years you have been working on this so successful. At what point did you realize that, unlike most people, I have to figure out a way to make the money work for me? How did that change and when did that happen and why did that happen? Because this is important to people. A lot of people don't understand this.
Absolutely. Well, actually, believe it or not, this began to happen for me around 2006 and almost going into 2007. I was young. I was really successful as far as, within my right. I was doing roughly 30 transactions a month. And to my credit as a young guy, netting at least $5,000 to $7,000 per property and doing about 30 of those every single month consistently.
Wow, unbelievable.
I thought I was doing good, right? And so I was doing events and speaking at seminars and doing these things. And I remember there was one specific event in Orlando that I was asked to go speak at. And at the end of the event, people just ran up to me and said, "How did you do this? Like, how do you sell these contracts?" And so they wanted to learn my business. And one of my colleagues said, "Rick, honestly, once you're done with these, discussions with people, I want you to meet someone really special." And so when I was done with this meeting, he came and said, "Rick, come over here. Let me introduce you to this gentleman." And this was an older gentleman. At the time, he was in his early 60s. And he seemed like he was completely disinterested in me. And being the young guy that I am and feeling that I had just told my story of success, I don't know, I guess there was a little pride in me, right? I thought, who is this guy and why isn't he noticing me? Right?
Of course.
And so the guy literally responds to me and he says, "Well, hey, congratulations, but I don't even know what you do." And I said, "Well, didn't you hear everything I've been saying for the last 45 minutes? And he says, "Well, all I've heard so far is that you're working for tips."
You're working for what?
For tips.
For tips.
He's like, "You're like a waiter." And I'm like, "Oh." So I said, "Wait a minute. What do you mean?" I was almost indignant. I was like, "Who is this guy and what does he think?" So a part of me was frustrated, but the other part of me was also curious because I'm like, who is this guy? What does he know that I don't know?
Yes.
And so I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, I'm going to ask you a few questions. And I said, sure. He said, yes, it's pretty impressive that you're creating this revenue every single month. He says, but what would happen if you got ill? Or what would happen if the market corrected itself? Would you still be able to survive with these transactions? Because as far as I'm concerned, you only make money when you transact. And it really kind of shook me at the core because I didn't have a logical answer to debunk that. The truth was, I was a transactional person.
Yeah.
And if I didn't close, I didn't get paid.
Yeah.
There was no passive income. So, immediately I humbled myself and I said, well, let me ask you a question. What is it that you do? And that's when he explained to me that he only works on a couple of projects a year, but those projects produce cash flow and financial freedom. So he doesn't have to invest. He gets to. And that is really when I became aware that my strategy was very one-dimensional. And luckily for me, and I thank the Lord, I believe that was an encounter that God blessed me with, because from that moment on, I actually collaborated with this gentleman and we invested in a couple of small commercial projects. And little did I know that within a year and a half, almost 2 years, the market would shift in 2008 and 2009.
Yeah.
And had I not had cash flow built in, you wouldn't have.
Wow. I see it. I completely see it, Rick. Oh my God. Wow. And that was truly
It was
unbelievable.
Definitely experience. It was definitely an experience and it was very humbling and I'm grateful. And so this is a perfect picture. When times are good, we can deceive ourselves and say, look at how productive I am.
Right.
But if we're not proactive and start taking from that revenue and building passive income, if the market shifts or if you get sick, oh my goodness, it changes everything. I'll give you another example. Now, fast forward many years later, right? We're in 2023. I have obviously since then started adapting passive strategies, a lot of them, lending is one of them. And, I had this heart condition that happened that was completely not expected. So I hadn't been in the office for almost 2 months. And yet my business continues to operate because not only do I have a great team, which is a massive, important piece, but also because the revenue of the passive income, it floated some of the things that we had to go through this past couple of months. And again, it's just a testament that cash flow is an essential piece of business. And we have to really work aggressively to get to the place where we build enough cash flow that it sets us free financially.
To set that system up. I mean, what a lesson. I know I see it, how deep this is. And if people realize what has happened with you and they see what they need to do, their lives is going to change. And you don't need a lot of money. You just need to make the right investment, right?
That is correct. That is correct. I'll give you a couple of examples that are very simple. We have a lady who actually has been a client of ours now for, at this point, like almost 7 years, if I recall correctly. But she works at a nonprofit. That's her dream job.
Right.
But clearly nonprofits don't make a lot of money. So it's not that she's making millions.
Right.
So what she had to do is sacrifice in the beginning. So she realized that she wanted to become financially free. So one of the things that she did is she bought a house and she rented the rooms to offset her cost. And then she took the payment that she would have had to make, and even though now her tenants are paying for it, she put that in savings. And for about a couple of years, she saved up enough money. And of course, as life is, right, things happen, her car started breaking down. So then she had a choice. She could take this cash that she has saved and she can buy a car, which is kind of a liability.
Right.
Which she thought about. Or she could take this cash, buy an income producing asset, and allow the interest that she's earning on that income producing asset to pay for her new car that she's financing. And that way she still has the money. And so what she actually did is she financed a vehicle. She bought a performing mortgage, meaning it's an asset secured by real estate that pays every month. And she took that interest, she paid her car payment, she still had leftover profit, and she started paying in her savings as if she had to make a car payment to add more savings. And so this has been compounding ever since. And so her cash flow now not only covers her car, it covers her entire mortgage if she wants to. And so this is an example of how it's not about the big things. It's about the little disciplines that if you're consistent over time, they build and they ultimately
build up. They build
exponentially grow for you.
Wow.
So that's a great example.
Yeah. Well, look, this is so clear, so important and the majority of the people in this country and around the world. Mm-hmm. They're always told, listen, forget about just work, put your money in the savings bank, right? In a savings account at some local bank. But people don't realize that they make no money there, okay, or very little, okay, barely covers inflation if it does, okay? So this is a different strategy. So what else is out there to do, Rick? What can you tell people to do? Where can they go if they want to do something like that? What are some of the advices in addition to what you already mentioned here that you can give them?
For most people, if you already have an income stream, a job, I always recommend don't quit that job until you already had a plan and you've already built that cash flow. But what you can do is really consider what type of investment and how much time you currently have to manage it. There's so many different ways that you can be a part of real estate. One of the ways, and I'll show you if that's okay in a second.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal Steve's account, so hopefully he won't have an issue with it. But you can, there's companies like ours out there that they finance other investors, right? Business purpose clients. They vet the deals. And then they can sell some of the mortgages. In fact, that's how I call it micro banking, because technically we didn't create this strategy. We basically adapted a strategy at a smaller level from what the banks do right now. Banks finance mortgages for consumers. They securitize those mortgages and get rid of them, and they stay on as a servicer and they get their money and do it again and again. So in essence, what we do is a micro version of that. We finance people that are experienced in solid projects that we like, that we believe in. And as the borrower pays, then this investor who's passive collects the monthly payments. And the worst case scenario, the person defaults, well, then this investor has the right to foreclose on that property. Now they have an asset out of distress. Right. So that's one essential piece. One example that I can give you, if I can share my screen real quick, it says I need to have access to it. But as soon as you can show that, I will share it. But You have so many different things that you could do with this. This, like, to me, lending is my favorite, because lending creates an opportunity for me to basically build relationships with other professionals and see who is real, who is a good steward. And then from that lending, I then evolve into a partnership. And so those really solid people I come back to and I say, look, not only am I going to lend you money, but I'm going to partner with you on deals. And that creates a lot of opportunities. And so what I'm sharing with people today is start small. You can start with a mortgage. You can buy a rental property. If you are going to buy a second home, that's another way to do it. And I would encourage you to do it in a place that you can do short-term rentals, because short-term rental income is incredible. So there's so many ways. We're even doing commercial investments. But to show you an example, I don't know why it's not showing the screen right now, but I'll send you here it is. Here it is. What you're looking at here, this is our platform, right? And so this is what we built for what we call our non-institutional investors. These are everyday investors. And what you'll see is that this is one of our clients, Steve, that you know very well.
Yeah.
And shows that he's over time been diversifying his revenue. Now, what you don't see is you see this big number and look how much money he's got. But what you don't see is that he's been taking the profits over time and doing short-term profits over time, that he's let it build up. And so now, as you start looking at his portfolio, he's got diversity in projects. He's got a project that he's a part of with us in Tulum. He has a variety of different projects, and he's able to pull up his statements as he gets his payments, and our platform provides the list of the payments he's been earning on a monthly basis or quarterly basis for his deals. And so this is just a platform that we built so that everyday investors can log in and really have an account of how they can build cash flow with our company. And it's an essential piece because, for example, if they want to see what opportunities are out there, they could just click on active investments. And these are some of the projects that our company is funding or has funded that they can participate in. And so you don't need $1 billion. I mean, some of these are 100,000. This one's 200. There's several that are literally 50,000, 66,000. So this is just to kind of give you a little perspective of ways that people can just participate, just being a part of what we do.
Being a partner of the investment, so it's sort of like a one unit, or is it a multi-unit type of investment pool?
That's a great point. So the ones that I'm showing you right now, these particular investments are what we call whole notes on commercial real estate investments. So basically, if it's a $50,000 loan and the investor buys the $50,000 loan, he is the 100% owner of that investment.
Yeah.
So it's very simple, very clear. Now, we do have other funds, but right now our fund for the public was closed for fund number 3. There will be one in the future coming out that other investors can then come together and invest in the fund so that we diversify as a group, both with strategies and also with capital. So that's another great way for other people to do that. So that's another tool, and we do offer it, but it's very exclusive right now,
right?
With the way we do it. But yeah, so we have 2 options. They can own one specifically for themselves, or they can invest in a fund if we have a relationship with them and benefit from the diversification. And then the last part is active. People that want to buy a house themselves, or if they want to build a house, we also finance those investors. So we do have ways that we can empower them to do deals so they can start building that active income that they can start over time investing passively.
Wow. So you do all the research. If they want to invest in the project and they like the project, they can invest with you, and you do everything. You do also the building out, or the build out of the project. You do everything, right?
Yeah, we vet everything. We've put together a pretty diverse system in our due diligence process when we're working on a project. So whenever we're vetting a deal, I almost tell people sometimes what's more important, more valuable, and I'll show you this visual, is having a system in place to properly vet your deal. So what you're looking at here is actually our software, proprietary diligence tools that we have built. And what it allows us to do is to go through all of our due diligence approach so that we can identify the location of the project, how many days we've been vetting it. All of our borrower and underwriting conditions are listed as we're completing them, and gives us kind of the details. So right now we're still waiting on the value on this one, for example. But having a systemized approach to underwrite, we have a whole list of diligence that we do on the borrower, and then of course on the project. These are essential elements. So what we're showing you here is that we've built a standard, a system, and we track the standard to make sure that the actual project and the borrower fit our minimum parameters to make sure that we make a wise investment decision. And so these systems allow us to basically scale, and they allow us to establish a relationship with our clients so that both the active investor has been vetted and feels safe about the deal they're doing,
right? But
also because our passive investors now are comfortable with the fact that we have built a system, and that standard, we look at every single deal consistently to make sure that we're making the best possible decision based on that opportunity.
Of course, there's got to be a investment that is worth investing in, and that the return is sufficiently enough to cover inflation and everything else, and on top of it a little bit left over, of course. But is there a way, for example, if somebody were to come to you today, what is eventually a minimum that somebody can invest in, and in some of the projects that you have or may have or have had or will have again, or can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, absolutely. On our whole loans, if somebody's looking typically to invest passively, it really depends on the loans that we have in the portfolio. Now, there are several projects where we might finance in a separate mortgage the renovation of a property. And so a lot of times we might have an opportunity where there's a loan for $35,000 that is secured by real estate. So a lot of our clients that have a self-directed IRA, they may not have $1 million there,
right? But
they may have 25, 35. And so typically I would say that's usually the lowest amount in our whole notes is about 35 generally is the lowest. And then we have loans, that are from that point on just higher. So we typically like to, minimize the exposure of our non-institutional investors. These are people that are everyday, not like a bank. Some of the banks we sell $100 million worth of paper to, they have a completely different criteria. So what we typically like to do is the higher balance loans that may have a little bit higher risk, those are the loans that we will fund and sell off to banks. And then the more conservative loans that are with lower balances, those are the ones that we typically reserve for our non-institutional investors so they can participate and get a great return on their money as well.
Right. So if you could give us an example for the return of an investment, what can people earn annually in terms of return on their investment with you there? Say, for example, is it 5%, 8%, 10%? Is it more? Is it less? What can people expect about an average? Obviously, right. An average.
Yeah. So to kind of give you perspective, when we're looking at a deal, remember, this is at least on the business purpose loan side. That's all right. We're talking about.
Right. But on the business, yeah, loan, on the plan, business plan. Obviously, reality is sometimes a little bit different, but.
Correct. And so what we typically do is, we will finance the investor. And I'll give you an example. Let's say this investor has worked with us in the past. It is a business purpose loan, so he is buying a distressed asset.
Right.
So what we would do as an example is I might do a loan and finance this client for 10%. And then what I'll do is I may have a non-institutional investor that'll come in and say, Rick, I want to buy this mortgage from you, and we'll pay them an 8% from the interest we're charging the borrower at 10. So what happens is the investor makes an 8% annualized return based on the interest we're charging, and my company makes 2% for managing the loan.
The assets, manage everything, yeah.
And so typically I would say the range at this moment is anywhere between 7 to 10% is the average interest rate that we're able to pass on to the investor who buys the mortgage. Mm-hmm. And so it's a pretty solid return. I mean, it's consistent, it pays out. And then of course, what ends up happening with those people that we have a relationship with is over time, some of those guys join us in our fund or in our higher producing opportunities. And so now they build a portfolio of fixed income and some great equity growth opportunities. And that's how they blend a solid yield for all of this.
And
money.
The equity growth is obviously a lot higher in average per compared to a mortgage rate right there. But right at, if you invest in some sort of like example that you just gave with a return of around 8%, the borrower, the investor, just puts the money in there and goes to sleep, right? Doesn't have to do much of work of anything. You manage it, basically everything, right?
You named it. That's exactly right. So basically the borrower is the one that's doing the heavy lifting, which is why the borrower is getting the lion's share of the profit. It's his profit, right? And so from our perspective, while we're not getting a percentage ownership of the project, we're getting interest on an asset. Let me give you an example because I like working with visuals for people. So here's an example of a brand new construction loan. This is a property that we financed. And, there was a lot. So meaning when he bought the property,
right.
Once he had the permits and we vetted the builder, what we did is we financed the construction, but we held the money in escrow. Mm-hmm. So basically the only time the money was released was when he requested a draw. Yeah. We sent a third party, they inspected. So what's amazing about this is we were at 60 cents on the dollar for this beautiful property that, as you can see, wow, fully renovated, obviously, great finishes. So after about 6 months of the client building this gorgeous house, he's already got offers. Here's another property that we did the same thing. So the reality is, had the borrower defaulted and we took this property back, we'd stand to make more money. But because we underwrote this right, we empowered that investor to build 2 to 3 homes with the money he currently has. And it gave us the ability to basically passively earn a paycheck every single month without doing anything. So this is an example of some of the collateral. These are some of the properties that would have been financed. The borrower is paying us every month, and we're collecting that income. It also works in commercial real estate. I'll give you an example. This is another type of project that we would finance with tenants like Aldi. Or, for example, wow, this one I'm working on right now in North Carolina. It's still underway. Now, this is a combination of a loan plus equity, but for some of the larger deals, we also do commercial, where, believe it or not, the guy that's putting this deal together, when he sells the 7-Eleven and this Hilton building, the rest of this is just about free and clear. Wow. So this creates some amazing opportunities, both in the residential and the commercial space, for investors to participate and get a great return on their money. So this is just to give you perspective, right, on the different types of deals and things that people can be a part of. Here's another example. These are short-term rental cabins out of Tennessee. We finance the construction on these in very similar ways. But the guys who build these kind of amazing properties, I mean, this property that I'm showing you pictures on right now is averaging $1,100 a night.
$1,100 a night.
Yes. And so when you do the math,
Wow.
if the cost to build this beautiful property and these amenities, this client gets to enjoy this property in off season, but he's now generating $1,100-$1,200 a night. And even at a 50% occupancy rate, this guy's doing an amazing job with cash flow with just one property. And so this is just, again, to expose you. Now imagine you're the lender here. He's not going to want to default. This is an amazing property. But if you were to default, I'm secured by a property that now rents for $1,000 a night.
Right.
So this is kind of give you perspective on the many different ways and the different projects that give investors a secured asset that they can collect payments on. So this is a perfect example.
So right there, you have the risk versus reward is like mind-boggling. And all you need to do is make sure that the investor is ready to go, because the opportunity is certainly there. So long as you do, like you said, you vetted the investment correctly, you do your due diligence. And that's, I have to tell you this, that I know, I see it, that it can only be done with experience, because most first-time investors or builders and all that stuff, the experience is not exactly there. And so you have it all down pat already. It's in the plan. You have it all laid out. The opportunities I see here are just unbelievable. And you do business basically, what, throughout the country?
Yeah, most of the states we will lend money on. And in fact, we're doing a couple of partnership projects in Tulum, Mexico. But yeah, our main base is typically going to be Florida, because obviously our footprint, our office is here. But we are doing projects in Tennessee. We're doing projects in North Carolina, South Carolina. We've been in Georgia, Alabama. We've been on the West Coast of California. So yeah, we have a pretty diverse portfolio of projects and of different types of projects. Like I just showed you in just a few minutes here, the difference between affordable ground up construction, luxury short-term rental properties. We've talked about commercial. Right. So it's a host of projects. But if I could emphasize on any one thing, is this: everything you see, as you talked about earlier, has a risk. So building a standard of criteria, which is what we use when I showed you that software, we built it into our technology because we want to eliminate our emotions. We want to make sure that logically, every single project has been vetted for all of the elements of risk that we have learned in the past could hurt us. And if they pass that standard, then we're able to feel confident about moving forward on the project. And so that's an essential piece, because like you said earlier, some builders might sell you this beautiful concept and it's a great idea and you get excited. But if you don't vet that opportunity and you don't know how to vet the opportunity, you stand the chance that that builder won't finish, or that there is another problem you didn't know about. And so like I talked about in the beginning of the call, what we've built is over years of failing forward, over years of trial and error. And that's what gives us the confidence. And we're constantly learning. And if something changes in the market, we adapt and put that in our process, because we want to make sure that we're being good stewards of the opportunities that come to us.
Amazing. Amazing. Rick, we are at the top of the hour, Rick. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. What a package of information here that people really need to understand and learn about. And of course, give us some 30 seconds of a summary of what you can deliver, or in terms of a message that you can give to people out there, based on your experience, what people should really do if they want to get into this business, of course.
Yeah, I mean, very, very briefly, one of the things, obviously, we talked about some key fundamental things throughout this whole presentation about not being afraid to make mistakes, failing forward, having the mindset that money is a tool, right? A tool that you can leverage to be your employee, making sure that you understand why you're doing this to begin with so that you have freedom. But one of the things that I will say that literally has changed my entire life and my philosophy is what I call investing with a purpose. Now, I can show you strategies and I can show you opportunities that can make you a lot of money. But what I've learned is that a lot of money doesn't really give you fulfillment, or it doesn't give you freedom. So what I want to challenge you to consider is, as you're building your wealth, consider that your wealth is a vehicle to live out your purpose. And what I tell people is, when you think of something or have a vision that is greater than you, and you're pursuing it every day, you feel the fulfillment of making a difference in the world because you're doing something greater than yourself. And so what I would challenge people to do is follow these types of principles, build wealth, but ask yourself, from the profit of these investments, who can I bless? Who can I pass this on so that I can make an impact? And that may not just be financially. You might also be able to impart these same principles to somebody else and help them to level up in their life. But I can tell you that it wasn't until I started doing my missionary work and using my business as a vehicle to make a difference, that is what changed my fulfillment. That is what changed everything in my career.
Wow. Wow. There you have it. These are the golden, diamond, whatever, ruby nuggets that I told you were going to get. The art of passive income. I don't know if it can be explained better. You know, and so if you are out there looking for something like this or looking to invest and not sure how or what, you got to watch this video over and over and over. And if you need access to Rick, let us know. We'll make sure that you get to talk to him, you get to speak to him, you maybe, who knows, meet with him and all that stuff and invest with him. Hopefully, that's obviously our purpose here, Rick. I'm going to use that word, purpose, you know, because of the fact that it is true. Our job here is to help others succeed. And if we know something, if we can help somebody to do something better, then I think that the reason why we are on this planet, that God put us on this planet, that we have somewhat fulfilled part of the message, a part of the reason we are here for. Okay, so I always think that what is your legacy? Are you here to just pass by, or are you here to impact somebody else? And you do it in a way that is, multiple occasions and many ways. So I wanted to really thank you for, again, being on the show, thanking you for the time that you took. I mean, you have so much going on. The nuggets you shared here today are so valuable. This is obviously very repetitious to you, but for people who have not seen this before, it really opens their eyes. And for me, when you said, use the phrase, fail forward, I never seen it like that. If I can take that phrase, I use it out there, fail forward. That is so powerful, and it's an automatic motivational word or phrase that, listen, I know I will stumble, but I have to get up and keep going. I have to get up and keep going, and I will fall down. I will break a leg. I will break an arm, but I'm not dead. I gotta keep going until one day you break the wall, you break through that wall, you do that quantum leap, and you get over on the other side, and you become somebody successful with passive income, that now you don't have to go crazy about money. Let more money work for you. What a lesson, Rick. Thank you so much. We will put all the information right here on this video and send it out there. Share it with everybody around the world. They need to get to know you, mister. They need to get to know you. Thank you again for coming. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon again. We'll have you back here on this show at some time in the future once more, if you don't mind.